Tanpa melengahkan masa, kita persilakan Grace Pan Yingling dari SMK Merbau, Miri, Sarawak untuk membentangkan kajian bertajuk Using Digital Comic Strip to Teach Story Writing to ESL Students with Lower Language Proficiency.
Through stories, we learn language, we discover life lessons, we connect with the world.
Hi, my name is Grace Pan.
I'm Diana Hanak Blandoy.
And I'm Kushilian.
We are from SMK Merbau Miri.
And this is our research.
Using comic strips to teach story writing to assist students with lower language proficiency.
Firstly, why did we choose this topic? Story writing is an art and one of the most important genres of writing in language learning. It is also one of the question options for Part 3 in the SPM English Language Paper 2. However, students with lower language proficiency often avoid this question as they feel that by doing so, they would be unable to score high marks in the examinations. In order to foster students' creativity and develop a better understanding of the English language through story writing, we need to give a boost of motivation to these students.
From the students' previous examination, where they did not attempt to answer the story writing question, it was observed that the main problem was low motivation and lack of confidence in narrative writing. The target students have a low level of proficiency in English language, as can be seen in their average score of 3 in the classroom-based assessment, and also having the lowest score for visual linguistic English language. Efforts have been put in to teach these SL students the elements of story writing, but the effort proved futile. They did not understand to apply the knowledge in writing stories. Seeing that most of these pupils are of the existential learners, the teaching and learning in class had attempted Socratic discussion methods, but due to their poor proficiency in VLEL, they were not able to appreciate nor take part in the discussion effectively. Students who are weak in English with low motivation need a learning method that is not only to their level of understanding, but something that they can see and understand.
The focus of the study is based on the concept of importance, usability, and relevance. The current study is important because story writing is one of the genres that will be tested in Part 3 of Paper 2 in the SPM English Language paper for the past 10 years. The usabilities of the research will be tested to determine the effectiveness of using comic strips to teach story writing, especially for learners with low proficiency. Meanwhile, the research is almost relevant, as information gathered would be useful for teachers of ESL to teach students with lower language proficiency. These are our research questions. First, did students use the elements of story writing to write their story? If so, how many? Second, the students shows more motivations in the post-questionnaires compared to the pre-questionnaires.
According to Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, in order for learning to take place effectively, it has to appeal to different learner types. When wordy worksheets are solely used for learning, many students will lose out due to the lack of motivation and also inability to process complex information. Research has shown that using comic strips in the classroom is able to boost students' motivation and class climate.
To begin the study, a questionnaire adapted from Pinterest and Decrypt was given to gauge students' motivation in learning the English language. A pretest was then administered to see how far students understood the conventions of story writing. In the first lesson of the research, the elements of story writing, such as using dialogues, ways to describe characters' feelings, settings, and writing a short timeline, were taught succinctly with notes and samples. In the next lesson, the students were given comic strips and sentence stems and were guided how to write narrative story based on the comic strips. After that, they proceeded to the third lesson, that is writing dialogues. In this lesson, comic strips with empty speech bubbles were given for students to come up with their own dialogues. Then, in the last lesson, a post test and post questionnaire were administered.
These are the results of the study. Students' usage of 4 elements of story writing in the pre and post test is illustrated in figure 1. Overall, the use of elements has significantly increased from the pre to the post test. From figure 2, we can see that there is no significant difference in the student motivations during English lessons before and after the use of comic strips and learning. In general, most students felt that comic strips were interesting, but in terms of knowledge acquisitions, they felt that it makes no considerable difference. Based on the results of the research, it's clear that the use of comics in teaching story is effective. Students were able to see the importance of using story writing elements such as setting, dialogues, and a short timeline in the comic strips and how they are used to form stories. However, the results of the study shows that changes in students' motivations were not significant. Nevertheless, there was a modest increase in the number of students who attempts the story questions after the study was done. During the first trial examinations, no students from the target groups chose story writing. In the second trial examinations, though, 2 out of 14 students brought a story. Another important factor that had constantly been neglected as the effective factors. Without a low effective filter, there is no intrinsic motivations that might spur the students to want to try.
To sum up, there is a lot of potential in using comic strips to teach story writing. However, to cater to the various learner types, they should not be a standalone material, but used with other types of learning approaches such as gamification, collaborative learning, and hands-on methods. This is also one way to lower students' affective filter, especially target learners with diverse backgrounds and behavioral patterns like the ones in this study. In conclusion, story writing is an important part of language learning. When low proficiency students are apprehensive about this genre, we need to ask ourselves, are we too KPI driven as to sacrifice individuality and suppress creativity? Yes, the product or outcome is indeed important, but even more so is the joy and the process of learning.
That is all from us. Thank you.
Terima kasih kepada Grace Pang Yingling atas pembentangan sebentar tadi. Jangan lupa, sesi soal jawab selama 5 minit akan berlangsung selepas pembentangan. Sila ajukan soalan anda di chat box YouTube.